The air inside the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton, Philadelphia, was so thick it felt like any sound could snap the fragile thread holding this deal together. The $5.2 billion agreement, the largest real estate project in the city's history, hung suspended between breakthrough and collapse. For 3 straight days, the executives of Green Development Corporation had been trapped in rounds of negotiations that only grew more tense. Across the table sat Sheikh Faisal al-Mansouri and his delegation from the Dubai Investment Fund. Even with the most seasoned negotiators and 2 professional interpreters in the room, communication had fallen apart, like a bridge collapsing midstream under relentless current. Both sides were already considering walking away, letting the dream of reshaping an entire downtown district fade into an unfinished promise. Charles Green, CEO of Green Development, had just concluded what he believed was a fair compromise on profit sharing when Sheikh al-Mansouri abruptly switched from polished Oxford English to rapid, clipped Arabic. His tone was sharp, his gestures forceful, directed squarely at his advisors, a deliberate move, like drawing a private curtain across the room, shutting the Americans out entirely. And then, a voice no one expected spoke up. If you love emotional, unexpected, and twist-filled stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. But wait. Who was the one who spoke up? And how could a single sentence from him turn an entire multi-billion-dollar deal upside down? Let's rewind. 3 days earlier, Owen Parker pushed his cleaning cart down the 12th floor hallway of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, spilling thin, silk-like streaks across the freshly polished marble floor. At 38, Owen carried the quiet appearance of a man long accustomed to invisibility. His navy blue uniform was neatly pressed, his hands roughened by years of gripping a mop handle. But his eyes held something different: sharpness, awareness, and a depth that didn't quite fit the image of a janitor. In his shirt pocket, next to a bottle of glass cleaner, was a small notebook. On the first page were cramped notes of Arabic financial terms. On the next, a list of daily tasks. Take Eli to dentist, 3 p.m. Submit essay on Islamic financial structures before Friday. Fix leaking kitchen faucet. 2 parallel worlds. No one knew that the man changing tissue rolls could analyze sukuk bond structures or clearly explain the difference between musharaka and mudaraba in Islamic finance. When Owen stopped by the door of the presidential suite, he caught fragments of voices. English blended with Arabic. It was the very meeting everyone in the hotel had been whispering about for days. He knocked lightly, then pushed the cart in after an assistant gestured permission. Inside the opulent room, no one noticed him. On one side sat the Green Development team, on the other, Sheikh Faisal and his advisors from Dubai, all of them tense. Owen began his routine: replacing towels, emptying trash, aligning the bottles of water. But his ears were listening. Charles Green was presenting the terms. A female interpreter beside him translated into Arabic. Owen frowned. She used himaya, meaning physical protection, instead of daman, financial guarantee. A small mistake, but in this context, it could change the entire meaning. Sheikh Faisal responded in Arabic, his tone deep and cold. The interpreter turned to English. The sheikh says he needs more time to review. But Owen had heard clearly. What the sheikh actually said was, "This clause insults the honor of our fund." He stayed silent, because he was just the janitor. That afternoon, back at his small South Philadelphia apartment, Owen found Eli sitting at the kitchen table, frowning at his 6th-grade math homework. "I'm home." "Sorry, kiddo, I'm late again." The boy looked up, his brown curls the same as Owen's had once been. It's okay, Dad. I'm used to it. Owen forced a smile. That was the third time this month he'd missed their plans. This weekend, I promise. We'll go to the Franklin Institute. Eli nodded, but his eyes had already learned not to expect too much. Dinner was just pasta with canned sauce. While the water boiled, Owen opened his old laptop and read an email from his thesis advisor. Your analysis is still too superficial. You need to go deeper into the cultural aspect. Deadline remains Friday. Owen sighed. When Eli fell asleep, he sat back at the desk, eyes hollow from exhaustion. The clock read 11 p.m., 5 hours before he had to get up again. But this was the only way. A degree was the ticket out of the cycle. Not for him, but for Eli. The next day, the air in the conference room was as heavy as molten iron. The Sheikh and his team sat distinctly apart from the Americans. Charles Green looked drained, a coffee stain on his shirt cuff. Rare for such a meticulous man. We've adjusted the profit-sharing ratio to 52-48, Green said. We've already made significant concessions. The interpreter misphrased again. The word tanazul, concession, struck Owen's ear like a blade. In Arab culture, that word was akin to declaring defeat. No wonder the Sheikh responded in an icy tone, speaking of karama, honor, and musawa, equality. The negotiation was no longer about numbers. It was about pride. Owen kept cleaning, but in his mind, pieces were falling into place. He had once written about this very theme in his unfinished master's thesis in Sharjah. The intersection of Islamic and Western finance lies not in profit, but in philosophy. The third morning. The air in the 12th floor hallway was thick. The sound of arguing spilled out from the presidential suite, sharp and metallic, like clashing steel. Owen knocked on the door. No answer. Housekeeping, he said softly. Not now. Go somewhere else, Turner barked. But Green interjected, his voice hoarse. No, let them in. Maybe. We need a bit of normal. Owen stepped inside. The air was so heavy it felt almost tangible. Green sat with his elbows on the table, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Across from him, Sheikh Faisal and his advisors sat still, calm in that distinct Middle Eastern way, the kind that comes only when one has already decided to walk away, yet remains polite. Sheikh Faisal, Green said, his voice raw, we've adjusted every single term. The ratios, governance rights, payment schedule. We truly don't understand what's still wrong. The interpreter translated. The Sheikh listened, then began speaking to his team in Arabic. His tone was firm. They do not understand. This is not about numbers. This is musharaka, equal partnership. They draft the terms as if we are a subordinate, not an equal ally. This is an insult. We are leaving. The interpreter turned to English. The Sheikh says he needs more time to discuss with his team. But Owen knew. It wasn't discussion. It was goodbye. $5.2 billion. Thousands of jobs. A project that could breathe life back into decaying North Philadelphia. All of it was about to vanish. Because of one mistranslated word. Owen's heart pounded. His hand trembled as he set down the water bottle. He knew, if he spoke up, he could save the deal. But if he was wrong, he'd lose his job, his home. Eli would have to change schools. He looked down at his worn shoes, drew a long, steady breath. Some things matter more than fear. Owen Parker lifted his head and spoke. Excuse me, Your Excellency Sheikh. Owen's voice rang out in Arabic, clear, fluid, and perfectly timed to the Gulf dialect. The room froze. Every head turned toward him. Sheikh Faisal, mid-sentence, stopped cold. His advisors stared at Owen as if a statue had suddenly spoken. Green and Turner went rigid, too stunned to comprehend what had just happened. One of the interpreters muttered under her breath, "What the—" Owen stood upright, still holding the water bottle. A strange, striking image. A janitor's uniform paired with the poise and diction of a high-level diplomat. "I apologize for interrupting," he continued in Arabic, "but I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding. Not about the numbers, but about how each side interprets the intent behind them." Sheikh Faisal narrowed his eyes, studying him. "You work at this hotel?" "Yes, sir. I'm a janitor." One advisor let out a doubtful chuckle, but the sheikh raised his hand for silence. "You speak Arabic well. Gulf Arabic. Where did you learn it?" "I lived in Sharjah for 8 years, Your Excellency. My wife worked for an oil company there. I studied at the American University of Sharjah, majoring in international finance, focusing on Islamic finance." Green shot up from his chair. "Excuse me, who are you? What are you doing here?" Turner stepped forward as if to escort Owen out. But the sheikh spoke in English, his tone firm with authority. "Wait, let him speak." He turned back to Owen, switching again to Arabic. "You said you understand the problem. What is it?" Owen swallowed hard. There was no turning back now. "Your Excellency, over the past 3 days, I've overheard parts of the discussions while doing my job. I believe the core issue isn't in the financial terms. It's in the language used to describe them." "Explain," said the sheikh. Owen set the bottle down, focusing fully. "When Mr. Green speaks of contingency clauses and protective provisions, the translation being used is the literal Arabic shurut ihtiyatiya and akam himaya. Those phrases suggest one side needs protection from the other, implying distrust." The sheikh nodded slowly. "Yes, that is exactly how we understood it." "But I don't believe Mr. Green meant it that way," Owen said. "In the American financial system, such clauses are standard legal requirements, not a matter of distrust, but of fiduciary duty to shareholders. The correct Arabic rendering should use words like dwabit, meaning regulatory controls, or ma'ayir, standards. It's not about protection against the other side, but about a framework within which both sides can operate." One of the sheikh's advisors interjected in Arabic, "And what about governance rights?" Owen turned to him. "That's the greater misunderstanding. When the Americans said performance-based governance adjustments, it was translated as ta'dilat ala asas al-ada, adjustments based on performance. In an Arab context, that sounds like, if you don't perform well, we'll strip your authority. That's a direct insult to capability and to honor." The sheikh stood and approached Owen. "You're right. That's precisely how we took it. But what Mr. Green meant," Owen continued, "was a shared governance framework, a structure where both sides make adjustments together based on mutually agreed milestones. In Islamic finance, this is akin to musharaka, a true partnership, where both parties share risk and authority." Green was trying to follow, though he didn't understand the Arabic. "Turner," he whispered, "what's happening?" Turner just shook his head, bewildered. But one thing was clear. For the first time in 3 days, the sheikh was listening. The sheikh switched to English and looked at Green. "Mr. Parker has just explained that your clauses are not about mistrust, but about legal compliance and shared governance. Is that correct?" Green glanced at Owen, then back at the sheikh, trying to piece it together. Yes, that's right. We want a partnership of equals. both sides making decisions based on shared goals. But that's not what was translated, the sheikh said, not accusingly, but with weight. What we heard was that you wished to control us, to reclaim power if we failed to meet your standards. Green collapsed back into his chair as if punched. No, absolutely not. We want to work with you, not control you. Owen spoke up in English. This is a matter of cultural context. In Western finance, control is a technical term, governance authority. In Arab culture, control implies domination and hierarchy. Same word, two worlds. The female interpreter lowered her gaze, ashamed. I didn't know those nuances. I translated literally. It's not your fault, Owen said gently. These are layered terms, halfway between finance and culture. You'd have to live and work in both systems for years to catch the difference. The sheikh turned to his advisors, speaking quickly in Arabic. They conferred for several minutes. Owen stood still, heart pounding in his chest. Finally, the sheikh looked up. Mr. Parker, would you be willing to help us review the entire contract to ensure proper translation? Owen checked his watch. 10:45. Eli finished school at 3. He had promised to pick him up. This time he wouldn't break that promise. I can work until 2:30, Your Excellency, he said quietly. After that, I have to pick up my son. Green interrupted, still disoriented. Wait, hold on. You're telling me you work at this hotel, yet you understand Islamic finance? Where did you study? Who are you? Owen turned fully toward him. For the first time in 2 years at this hotel, he met the CEO's eyes. Not as an employee, but as an equal. My name is Owen Parker. I have a bachelor's in economics from Penn State. I began a master's program in international finance at AUS in the UAE. I worked 3 years for a consulting firm specializing in cross-border investments between the Middle East and the US. My wife fell seriously ill, and we returned home. I left school to care for her. When she passed away, I was left with an 11-year-old son and about $180,000 in medical debt. I needed a job with flexible hours right away. Cleaning hotel rooms lets me work while my son's in school and study online at night to finish my degree. Silence filled the room. Turner was the first to speak. You're saying you're an expert in international finance, and we didn't know because you mop floors. I mop floors because bills don't pay themselves, Owen said simply. Expertise doesn't cover rent. Green walked closer, for the first time, truly seeing Owen. Not glancing past him, not looking down, but straight at him. Mr. Parker. Owen, we need you. This deal needs you. I'll pay you a consulting rate of $300 an hour for any time you can give us, and I'll personally coordinate with the hotel to cover your shift. Owen froze. $300 an hour. More than a week's wages. But I have to pick up my son at 3, he said softly. Of course, Green replied immediately. Family comes first. We'll work around your schedule. The sheikh nodded approvingly. I respect a man who puts his family first, he said. In our culture, that is the mark of a true man. Owen looked around. Everyone was looking at him now, no longer as the janitor, but as a man. All right, he said quietly. I'll help. The afternoon of the 3rd day, the first working session began. Owen took a seat at the conference table, no longer standing tucked into a corner as he always did. Green signaled to an assistant to bring another chair and placed it right between the two sides. All right, Owen said, opening his old Dell laptop. The screen slightly cracked at the corner, a stark contrast to the gleaming MacBook Pros around the table. I propose we start with Section 3, Governance Structure, because That's the very source of every misunderstanding. He scrolled to page 47 of the contract. Mr. Green, could you explain what you truly intend with this tiered governance framework? Not in legal language, what you actually want. Green thought for a moment, then replied, We want both parties sitting on the operating council. Major decisions must be by consensus, but if the project runs into trouble, say revenue misses or construction delays, we need a mechanism to adjust quickly, not to control, but to remediate. Owen nodded, then switched to Arabic with Sheikh Faisal. Your Excellency, Mr. Green is describing a structure similar to Majlis al-Idara al-Mushtarak, a joint management council where both sides have equal voice. The adjustment component is not about seizing control, but Itar al-Istijaba al-Sari'a, a rapid response framework when challenges arise. The Sheikh listened, his gaze softening. Like a steering committee within a Musharaka partnership? Exactly, Your Excellency. And if we rewrite the language to reflect that both parties participate in the adjustments, rather than one side imposing on the other, that can ease your concern. One of the advisors, Abdul Rahman, an older man with a calm, weighty face, spoke up. Mr. Parker, you seem to understand that for us, this is not merely a deal. It is honor. If we sign an agreement that makes us look like a junior partner, that is unacceptable. I understand completely, Mr. Abdul Rahman, Owen replied. I worked on a similar transaction in Abu Dhabi in 2008. The Western partners then did not grasp that, in your culture, being seen as an equal partner matters more than an extra 2 to 3% in profit. They lost the deal simply because they forgot the word dignity. Abdul Rahman nodded knowingly. You worked in Abu Dhabi? For which firm? Morrison and Associates. We advised on cross-border real estate investments. I know Morrison. They are highly reputable. He turned to the Sheikh and said something in Arabic that made the Sheikh nod slightly. Over the next 2 hours, Owen served as a bridge, translating not just words, but intent. When Green spoke of performance metrics, Owen explained that it was not testing capability, but shared milestones set by both parties. When the Sheikh expressed concerns about oversight, Owen told Green it did not mean the Sheikh wanted total authority, only that he wanted to ensure every decision was made with full understanding of UAE culture and law. At 2:15, Owen glanced at his watch. Apologies, I have to pick up my son. Green stood at once. Thank you, Owen. In 2 hours, we've gone farther than in the past 3 days. Could you come back tonight? Owen hesitated. I don't have childcare tonight. I need to... Bring the boy along, the Sheikh said with a smile. Children should see their fathers at work. That is the best education. Owen chuckled and nodded. Then we'll be back at 7. That evening, the 12th floor suite glowed with warm, golden light. Eli sat cross-legged on the sofa, eyes wide with amazement. His father, the man who came home every day smelling of cleaning chemicals, was now seated at the center of a sleek conference table, speaking to people in expensive suits, in a language that sounded strange to him. What language is Dad speaking? Arabic, son. I studied in the UAE before you were born. Dad, you're amazing. I didn't know you knew another language. Owen ruffled his hair and smiled. There are a lot of things about Dad you don't know yet. Just like there's a lot about people we only see when we look closely. What are you doing here, Dad? I'm helping them understand each other, kiddo. Sometimes people speak the same language but think differently. I'm translating not just words, but meaning. So Dad is important? Owen paused. The innocent question landed in the deepest place inside him. I don't know if I'm important, Eli, but when you can help, You should. An assistant brought pizza for Eli. He took the first bite and whispered, "Dad, the man in the white shirt keeps looking at you and smiling. He's kind." Owen followed his gaze. It was indeed Sheikh Faisal, watching the two of them with warm eyes. When the session ended, the Sheikh came over and shook Eli's hand. "Good boy. Do you know your father is doing something very important?" Eli nodded, shy. "Your father is a man of honor, hardworking, wise, and responsible. You should be proud." Eli looked at his dad, eyes shining. "I'm very proud." On the way home, Eli squeezed his father's hand. "Dad, are you going to work with them from now on? Not mop floors anymore?" "I don't know, son, but mopping floors isn't a bad job. It's honest work that lets me take care of you. There's nothing shameful about it. But I think you should do the kind of work you did today." Owen crouched to his son's eye level. "Listen to me, Eli. A person's worth isn't in their title or how much money they make. It's in their character, how they treat others, and whether they dare to do what's right. Whatever I do, I'm still your dad. Understand?" "I understand." Eli hugged him tight. "But I still think you were super cool today." Owen laughed. "Then we're alike. I think you were super cool too. Sitting still that long isn't something every 11-year-old can do." The next morning, Owen returned to the hotel after dropping Eli at school. This time, there was no janitor's uniform. He wore his best dress shirt, a bit old, a bit tight, and neatly pressed slacks. Not fancy, but properly presentable. The mood in the conference room was completely different. Green stood up. "Good morning, Owen. Coffee?" For the first time, the CEO himself poured him a cup. They worked through the entire morning, clause by clause. Patiently, Owen explained each nuance and proposed clear, cohesive wording that brought the sides together. Everything progressed smoothly until they reached profit distribution. 70-30 for the first $500 million in profit, then 50-50 after that, Green proposed. The Sheikh frowned. "Unacceptable. That implies they believe we contribute less in the early stage." "But we take on more risk. We put in more capital," Green objected. "Risk is not only capital," the Sheikh replied. "We bring reputation, networks, and legal facilitation. That is risk as well." Tension rose again. Voices on both sides began to climb. Owen felt the pressure building. He was no longer just a translator. He was becoming the problem solver. Then Turner, who had been silent, suddenly sprang to his feet. "Enough! Clearly this is going nowhere. Maybe this deal was never meant to happen." Green turned on him, angry and exhausted. Owen felt his heart tighten. They had been so close to the finish line. And now— "Wait," Owen said, this time not translating but speaking directly. "I think both sides are arguing in the wrong direction." All eyes turned to him. "The issue isn't 70-30 versus 60-40. The issue is that the two sides define value differently. Mr. Green, you see value as capital. Your Excellency, Sheikh Faisal, you see value as an ecosystem of partnership. Capital, reputation, relationships, and expertise." Owen stepped forward and picked up a marker, writing on the whiteboard. "If we distribute profit based on different categories of contribution instead of only on invested capital—" Turner cut in, sharp. "With all due respect, Owen, you're the interpreter, not the deal architect." Owen froze. The words cut like a blade. He knew he had just crossed a line. "He's right," Owen said softly, putting the marker down. "I apologize." But the Sheikh looked at Turner. His voice cool. In fact, Mr. Turner, I am the one asking Mr. Parker to speak. Let him continue." Turner fell silent and sat. Owen drew a breath. "All right. If we consider a value-sharing model based on a value matrix, instead of rigid percentages." He began sketching the schema, explaining in both languages, weaving in principles of Islamic finance. Profit sharing based on real contributions, not merely capital ratios. Green and the Sheikh both leaned in, following closely. "This could work," Green said slowly. "And it aligns with Musharaka principles," the Sheikh added. "Equal partners based on true value." They spent 2 more hours refining the model. At lunch break, Green pulled Owen aside. "Owen, I want to bring you into the company. Full-time. Position, Director of International Partnerships. Salary $180,000. Full benefits." Owen was stunned. With that amount, he could pay off the medical debt in 2 years, get Eli into a good school, build a decent life. "Mr. Green, I am very grateful, but I don't have a master's degree. I'm not qualified." "Nonsense," Green said. "You just rescued a $5.2 billion deal my legal team couldn't move. You're qualified." "But I need flexible hours. I have to take care of Eli." "We'll make it work. Hybrid, work from home, whatever you need." Owen fell silent. Everything he had ever dreamed of was right in front of him, and that was exactly what made him afraid. "I need time to think." Green nodded, a bit disappointed. "I understand. But this offer stands." After lunch, Owen returned to the conference room with his mind in knots. Green's offer still echoed in his head, like a melody without its final refrain. But he knew this was not the time to think about himself. The deal still wasn't done, and a single misstep could bring everything down. When he walked in, the room felt very different from the morning. Next to Sheikh Faisal and Green were 3 new faces. 2 senior attorneys from Green Development's New York office, and a finance specialist from Dubai who had landed that morning. The woman in a gray Armani suit stood up first. She extended her hand with confident poise. "Mr. Parker, I'm Margaret Dawson, head of legal. I've heard what you've done these past 2 days. Very impressive." Her voice was courteous, yet there was caution in it, even wariness. "However, there are several points in the structure you proposed this morning that we need to clarify." Owen nodded. "I'm ready to listen." Margaret opened her laptop and projected a barrage of dense legal clauses. "Specifically, your value matrix model. The idea is creative, but legally, there's a problem. Under Delaware law, any profit-sharing structure must have clear, quantifiable percentages. It can't be fuzzy or flexible, as you describe." Owen felt his stomach tighten. She wasn't wrong. He'd focused too much on culture and forgotten the hard legal wall waiting ahead. Sheikh Faisal looked to the new arrival, early 40s, sharply cut black suit, iPad Pro in hand. "This is Mr. Rashid Al-Zabi," the Sheikh introduced, "our fund's leading expert on structuring." Rashid spoke English with a smooth, precise British lilt. "Mr. Parker, I've reviewed your proposal. Theoretically, it's appealing. But there's a major gap." He tapped the screen to reveal a complex spreadsheet. "In Islamic finance, Musharaka requires absolute transparency on risk. Your model uses soft metrics, indicators that cannot be verified or audited. That violates the transparency principle for Sharia compliance." The room went still. Owen felt every eye turned to him. Turner smirked, a trace of mockery in his voice. "Looks like our hero just met reality." Green shot Turner a warning look, then asked, "Owen, what do you think?" For a moment, Owen stood on the edge of a cliff. Two top experts had just pointed out a gap that he, a former janitor without a master's degree, had missed. Part of him wanted to let go. Maybe Turner was right. He'd overreached. Then Eli's face flashed in his mind. Those bright eyes last night when he'd said, "Dad, you were super cool." Owen drew a steady breath. "You're both right." Margaret and Rashid exchanged a quick, satisfied glance until he continued. "But we don't have to choose between flexibility and precision. We just need to build a bridge between two worlds." He stepped to the whiteboard and picked up a marker, his voice calm and clear. "I'm not a lawyer, nor a finance specialist like you, but I've lived inside both systems, Western finance and Islamic finance. And I learned one thing: no problem is unsolvable if we truly want to build bridges instead of dig trenches." Owen wrote in bold letters, "Two-tier structure. Tier 1, fixed legal framework, a hard legal layer that satisfies Delaware law. Baseline profit split, 60-40. Clear, transparent, auditable." Margaret gave a small nod. "That's reasonable." Tier 2, performance incentive pool, a separate bonus mechanism. The soft metrics, contributions that can't be precisely quantified, are measured here. It's not part of the core profit sharing. It's a value-based reward. Legally, it's a performance bonus, not core distribution. Rashid frowned slightly. The sheikh leaned in, listening closely. Owen switched to Arabic, voice low and firm. "Your Excellency, this structure ensures you are not treated as a passive investor. Tier 1 shows equality. 60-40 is fair and defensible. Tier 2, the performance pool, lets both sides aim at shared success. No one polices the other. Both are respected." The sheikh asked thoughtfully, "But how is this pool calculated? Is it truly transparent?" "Completely, Your Excellency. We establish an independent audit committee, one representative from each side, and a third independent expert. They evaluate quarterly against pre-agreed indicators. All data is recorded and openly reviewed." Rashid worked his iPad rapidly, then looked up. "If this pool does not exceed 15% of total profit, and the indicators are defined clearly at the start of each fiscal year, it could be Sharia compliant." Margaret nodded, reflective. "And if we classify it as a discretionary bonus rather than profit distribution, then under Delaware law, it should pass. It needs careful drafting, but it's viable." Green looked at Owen, a blend of astonishment and pride in his eyes. "Did you just think of this right now?" Owen smiled faintly. "Not exactly. I saw a similar model in Abu Dhabi in 2007 between a U.S. firm and a local family office. They called it a dual-layer partnership model. It failed, not because the idea was bad, but because no one had the patience to explain it to each other." Turner asked, without the earlier bite, "Why didn't you say this from the start?" "Because this model only works when both sides genuinely trust each other. This morning, when trust was fragile, it would have caused more confusion. Now it's different. Now we have a foundation to build something more complex." The sheikh stood, walked to Owen, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Mr. Parker, you are not merely a translator or a finance expert. You are a true diplomat." Abdul Rahman, the senior advisor, nodded. "In our culture, the right man is not the one who speaks the most, but the one who knows when to speak. You did that. By 8 in the evening, nearly all key terms were settled. Green proposed a break, with the final signatures set for tomorrow morning. Owen gathered his papers, exhausted but lighter. For 2 days he'd lived strung tight as wire, both the janitor once dismissed and the man proving he deserved a seat beside a CEO and a billion-dollar investor. "Owen, wait a moment," Green called as the others filed out. He motioned for Owen to sit. This time, he spoke not as a boss, but as a friend. "I know I made an offer this morning, and you said you needed time. I understand." Owen stayed quiet. Green leaned back, looking out over the city lights. 30 years ago, I was just like you. My dad was a carpenter, my mom a seamstress. I was the first to attend college, and it was community college at that. I worked 3 jobs to pay tuition. After graduation, I joined a small real estate firm and drove a taxi at night. Not because of the money, because I was afraid. I was afraid that if I let go of the taxi, I'd lose my last safety raft. Afraid to fail. Then my boss at the time, Richard Kowalski, told me, "Charles, you can't fly if you keep clinging to the ground." The next week, I quit the taxi, and that decision changed my life. Owen sat, stunned. He'd never heard Green share something so personal. Green turned back, eyes sincere. "I'm not saying this to pressure you. I'm saying it because I see myself in you. A man too talented who keeps himself in a cage called responsibility. I just want you to know. Sometimes a man can be responsible and still soar." Owen gave a small, hoarse laugh. "I'm not afraid of failing, Charles. I'm afraid of succeeding." Green frowned slightly. "Succeeding? If I take this job, I'll have to change everything. How I live and how I see myself. I'm used to being invisible. No one expects anything of me, so I never disappoint. But if I step up and fall, I'll disappoint my son, and that's something I can't bear." Green nodded, his gaze deepening. "Owen, your son saw you work these past 2 days, didn't he?" "Yes." "And what did he say?" "He said I was super cool." Green smiled. "Then imagine if you went back to mopping. Nothing wrong with that job. But in his eyes, he'll wonder, why did Dad quit the job he was great at? And maybe he'll grow up believing safety matters more than dreams. Is that the lesson you want him to learn?" The words hit Owen straight in the chest. He didn't answer. Green rose and patted his shoulder. "Think it over. But whatever you decide, you deserve good things. Not because you saved this deal. Because of who you are. A devoted father. A man of integrity. And a true professional." By the time Owen got home, it was nearly 10 at night. He eased the door open, assuming Eli was asleep, but a sliver of light shone from under the bedroom door. "Eli, you're still up?" "I was looking at the photos from last night," the boy said, looking up with a shy grin. "I took some of you talking to those men in suits." Owen sat beside him and stroked his hair. "Why aren't you asleep?" "I kept thinking. You looked so different yesterday. Not a bad different. Just different. Like someone important." Owen smiled softly. "I'm still just Dad, kiddo. That doesn't change." "I know. But..." Eli hesitated. "I think maybe you've been important for a long time. It's just nobody saw it. Not even you." Owen froze. "What did you say?" "At school, my friend Marcus. His dad's an engineer. Really good, but he's never home. Marcus says he'd rather his dad have a regular job and be around. But you're always here. You take me to school, make breakfast, help with homework. I don't need you to be a big shot. I just need you like this." Owen pulled him close. Eli went on, gently, "But I think you can be both. I saw you in that conference room and you were still my dad. Just, you believed in yourself a little more. Why can't you keep doing that?" Owen gave a weary smile. Because I'm afraid everything will change. But everything already changed, Dad, Eli said firmly. Since Mom died, everything changed. And we're still okay. We still have each other. Owen looked at his son, eyes so much like Sarah's. Kiddo, you're so much like your mom. Mom would want you to take that job, wouldn't she? Yeah. Your mom would kick me and say, Don't be ridiculous, Owen. Eli laughed. Then you know what to do. When Eli fell asleep, Owen sat at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. The screen lit his tired but unburdened face. His fingers began to type. Dear Mr. Green, I have considered your offer, and I would like to accept. Owen paused for a beat and looked up at Sarah's photo on the wall. She smiled, gentle as ever. He whispered, as if speaking to her, I'm ready. Thursday morning, Owen walked into the Ritz-Carlton with a completely different feeling. No cleaning cart, no navy blue uniform. Today, he wore a suit. Not an expensive one, just a second-hand outfit he'd picked up the night before. But it was neatly pressed, carefully matched. As soon as he entered the lobby, he saw Linda from housekeeping polishing the glass cabinets. Owen? Linda froze, her mouth open wide. Oh my God, you look so different. Hi, Linda, Owen smiled. Still me, just a little change. I heard you've been helping with that big deal on the 12th floor. The whole hotel's talking about you. Ah, I'm just doing my part. Linda stepped closer, her voice sincere. You deserve this. You were always different. The way you talk. The way you think. I used to wonder why someone like you was here. Now I get it. You were just waiting for the right moment. Owen nodded, warmth rising in his chest. Thank you, Linda. And hey, there's nothing shameful about cleaning work. I'm still proud of the days I worked here. I know, but sometimes people deserve more than that. Inside the presidential suite, the atmosphere was entirely different from day one. Green and Sheikh Faisal now sat side by side, no longer at opposite ends of the table. Margaret Chen and Rashid Al-Zabi were reviewing clauses while chatting easily. Even Turner, the perpetual skeptic, looked more relaxed. Owen, Green waved. You're here. We're almost done. Owen took a seat. Sheikh Faisal greeted him in Arabic. Good morning, Mr. Parker. I hope you slept well last night. You've earned the rest. Thank you, sir. I did. For the first time in years. Abdul Rahman placed a small, elegantly patterned box in front of Owen. A small gift from the Sheikh and our team. To thank you. Owen opened it. Inside was a black lacquer Parker duofold pen, his name engraved in Arabic script. This is too valuable. I can't. The Sheikh gently waved his hand. In our culture, a man of honor deserves the instrument of that honor. This pen is for you to sign important agreements in the future, not as an employee, but as a man of dignity. Owen lifted the pen, feeling its weight, not just of metal, but of meaning. Thank you, sir. I'll treasure it. By 11 o'clock, everything was ready. 2 thick sets of contracts, one in English, one in Arabic, lay neatly on the table. Green held his pen, looked at the Sheikh, and said, Sheikh, in 30 years of business, this has been the hardest and most meaningful deal I've ever done. Not because of its size, but because of what we've learned about each other. The Sheikh nodded. In my culture, there is a saying, Al-Sadiq waqt al-Diq. A true friend is the one beside you in hardship. We've faced difficulty together. Now, we are true partners. They both signed. Applause filled the room. Assistants clicked photos, lawyers stamped seals, and documents were carefully filed. Then Green turned to Owen, opened a separate folder, and pulled out a paper. "One last thing," he said clearly. "Owen Parker. This is your official employment contract with Green Development Corporation. Position: Director of International Partnerships. Salary: $180,000 per year, plus performance bonuses. Flexible working hours. Full health coverage for you and Eli." Owen stared at the page, heart pounding. Green continued. "Additionally, the company will sponsor you to complete your master's degree at a school of your choice. Pennsylvania, Wharton, or, if you'd like to return to AUS in the UAE, we'll support that too." The Sheikh added, "Our fund would also like to help clear your medical debt. Not as a loan, as a gift for what you've done." "Sir, you don't have to do that," Owen said, stunned. "We do it because we believe in zakat, helping those who deserve it. And you deserve it, Mr. Ravy Parker." Tears welled up, not the salty kind of fear or sorrow, but of relief and gratitude. I don't know what to say." Turner, the man who had doubted him most, stepped forward and extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Owen. I'm sorry for misjudging you." Owen shook his hand firmly. "It's all right. You were just protecting your company. I understand." That afternoon, Owen asked to leave early to pick up Eli from school. This time, there was no rush, no heavy thoughts about a night shift ahead. He drove his old car to the school and waited under the shade of a tree. The bell rang. Children poured out. When Eli saw his father in a suit, he froze. Then his eyes lit up. "Dad, why are you dressed so nice?" Owen knelt down to his level. "Because today's a special day. I've got good news." "What news?" "I got a new job. I won't be cleaning floors anymore, though there's nothing wrong with that. I'll be doing work that helps companies around the world collaborate." Eli's eyes widened. "Like what you did these past few days?" "Exactly." "So, does that mean we'll be okay now?" Owen hugged him tight. "We've always been okay, son. But now, we'll be even better. And the best part, we'll have more time together. No more night shifts? No more. Every night I'll be home, helping with homework, cooking dinner, and maybe we'll eat out more often, not just jarred pasta." Eli laughed. "I pick pizza. Pizza it is, to celebrate." On the way home, Eli tilted his head. "Dad, are you scared about the new job?" Owen thought for a moment, then nodded. "Of course. I'm terrified, but I've learned something. The scariest thing isn't failing. It's doing nothing at all. And I have you. That's my reason to be brave." "I'll be brave like you, Dad." Owen squeezed his hand gently. "You already are, Eli. All these years, after your mom passed, with me working nonstop, not having what other kids have, you never complained. You're my hero." 6 months later, Owen stood on the rooftop of the first completed tower in the North Philadelphia Revitalization Project, a 32-story glass building glowing in the city's sunset. Beside him stood Green, Sheikh Faisal, Abdul Rahman, and hundreds of guests, city officials, investors, and local families who would soon benefit from the project. Green stepped up to the podium, his deep, warm voice echoing through the sound system. "Tonight, we're not just inaugurating a building, we're inaugurating a bridge between two cultures, two ways of doing business, and two visions of success." He turned toward Owen, standing in the front row with Eli holding his father's hand. "But this bridge wouldn't exist without one man. A man who once seemed invisible in this very room, yet saw more clearly than any of us. Owen Parker. Would you please come up here?" Owen froze for a second. He hadn't expected to be called. Eli nudged his arm softly. "Go on, Dad." Owen walked up to the stage, still not used to being the center of so many eyes. Green handed him a bronze plaque. "Owen, this is to honor your role, turning a deal on the brink of collapse into what is now considered a model partnership for our city. You didn't just translate language. You translated dreams." Applause thundered through the rooftop. Sheikh Faisal stepped forward, smiling. "In my culture, we say, iron on the outside, gold in the heart." Mr. Parker embodies that. Strong yet compassionate, humble yet brilliant, and above all, a wonderful father. He looked at Eli. "Young man, your father is the best example you could ever have. Grow up to be like him." Eli bowed slightly, eyes glistening. Owen took the microphone, his voice trembling at first, then steady and warm. "I'm not great at public speaking, but I want to say this. 6 months ago, I thought my worth was defined by the work I did. I thought that because I cleaned floors, I didn't matter." He paused, scanning the crowd. "But I've learned that value isn't in a title. It's in what we're willing to do when opportunity comes, and whether we have the courage to take it." A soft breath. Then he continued, "I also learned that no one is truly invisible. We're only invisible to those who refuse to look closely. And sometimes, the one who needs to look closer is ourselves." Owen turned to Eli. "The most important thing I've learned is that dreams aren't a luxury. They're fuel, what carries us through our hardest days. If there's one thing I want to leave to my son, it's this. Don't let circumstances define you. Let your values carve the path you create." Applause swelled, warm, long, and full. Owen later returned to the Ritz-Carlton, not for a shift, but to visit Linda and his old co-workers. He brought a box of donuts and coffee. "Owen!" Linda hugged him tightly. "It's been so long. How are you?" "I'm doing great, Linda. I came back to say thank you for being kind to me during my time here." "Are you kidding? You were the kindest one of us all." Owen sat down in the staff break room, the same place where he used to eat a rushed lunch between shifts. "There's something I want to tell everyone," he said, looking around at the janitors on their break. "When I worked here, sometimes I felt unimportant, like what I did didn't matter." The room fell silent, listening. "But looking back now, I realize that job taught me the most important lessons: patience, humility, and how to listen. Those things, not degrees or titles, are what helped me succeed." Linda nodded thoughtfully. "But, Owen, there are still a lot of people here with dreams to change their lives. What would you tell them?" Owen thought for a moment. "Don't wait for permission. I waited for years, and nothing changed until I dared to speak up, even though I was terrified. You don't need a miracle. You just need courage. Once. Just once. And the door will start to open." Saturday night. Owen and Eli sat on the couch watching a cartoon. No more peeling walls or cramped corners. They'd moved into a modest house in a safe neighborhood, with a backyard where Eli could kick a soccer ball. "Dad, next week I have to do a school presentation about my hero," Eli said. "Can I pick you?" "Of course you can. But I'm no hero, son." "You are to me," Eli smiled. "You cleaned floors, cared for Mom, raised me, went back to school, and never gave up. That's what heroes do." Owen hugged him, heart full. "You know, there's something I never told you. That day, the day I spoke up in that meeting, I almost didn't. I was so scared. But I thought about you. I asked myself, what would Eli do? And I knew you'd be brave. so I had to be brave too. Eli giggled. Then, I'm a hero too. That's right. We're a team. They kept watching the cartoon under the warm light. Outside, Philadelphia sparkled. Somewhere out there, a massive project continued construction. The legacy of courage, faith, and one perfectly timed Arabic phrase. But here, in a small living room, the real legacy was being written. A father and son, together, no longer afraid of tomorrow. People ask me, what was the moment that changed your life? I answer, it wasn't when someone gave me an opportunity. It was when I realized the opportunity had always been there. I just hadn't reached for it. Because in the end, no one can make you invisible. Unless you agree to be. If this story touched your heart, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and which moment moved you most. Like and share this video with someone who needs a little courage today. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.